All right, we are live. Facebook is screwing with us again. That's why the 30-second delay. Sorry. Um, so it was probably Facebook screwing with me because the Warriors just had an epic collapse. I was trying to think of what the comparable collapse would be. You're a little too young for this one because you would have been like 2 years old. But no, you'd have been 3 years old. 2002 Giants Angels World Series. Giants are up in game 6, about to close it out, and they can't close it out. And then Angels win game 6 and game 7. A game 6 and a game 7 is a little bit harder to fathom, a little bit harder to swallow. This is only game 1. So that's probably harsh, but it's really what I thought about when you have a game in which, we talked about this. You have to hold court. You're the home team for a reason. The thing that scared me the most is Boston coming out and going like, oh, like we're actually just as good as these guys. And the confidence part of that was what I was so worried about. And for the first 3 quarters, even that second quarter, I know the Warriors didn't play fantastic that second quarter, but they stayed there. Even in those Steph minutes that they lost, they didn't give it up big time, like in the fourth quarter. But once Boston saw the older legs cannot close out on the 3, the young team whipping the ball around, even though, they've played more games. This was like my nightmare scenario. And man, if that fourth quarter is representative of how these games are going to go, the Warriors are in big trouble. Now, I do think that, they're savvy vets. They're not going to, they're going to try and figure out, how to do it. But, game 1 was pretty much the worst case scenario for the Warriors, and they lose by 12, though they were down by 15. Ultimately, what were your main takeaways here?
Before the takeaways, we were saying it. Plus Minus was saying it. Almost any single podcast you listen to was saying it. This was a must-win game for the Warriors. They were a home court team in this finals. They get the majority home court for all the games, and they're a 3 seed in the West.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know how many times that happens, and you had to take advantage of it. They beat the Mavericks in 5 games. The Celtics had to get pushed to game 7 against Miami. You had the longer rest. You've been there before, and it was just lining up to be the most must-win game ever. But my main takeaways from the game, I did like a little bit of, I wrote down my notes, tweeted it out at halftime. I said, Steph wasn't getting doubled. He wasn't getting blitzed. It was like they were almost just one-on-one Steph and Curry. And that's why he went off for 21 points in the first quarter. What was another one? I should just bring it up right now. But another one was that Tatum was struggling. And that kind of continued throughout the game. And my main point of bringing this up is because a lot of the stuff that I wrote in this kind of continued for the whole game. And I feel like that was an issue. I wrote that the Warriors were getting confused on defense from off-ball screens leading to open threes. I think that was more of a first half thing. The second half, they were just driving and kicking, and Warriors were getting sunk in. And my problem with that is that you play Jokic in the first round, where that's all he does. You play Ja in the second round for 3 games, but that's all he does. Luka in the third round, sure, he has a 3-point shot to him, but that's kind of what he does too a little bit. It's either shot creation from the behind the perimeter, or he's going to drive, bring defenders in, either hit the shot or kick. This isn't the first time they're seeing a simple drive and kick from like a Jason Tatum or a Jaylen Brown. Yet they kept sinking so hard. And I want to blame Jordan Poole for a lot of it, because I do feel like it was a lot of his guys going at him. I was getting ready for the Warriors to win this game, and for me to write like, the Warriors were putting Jordan Poole on Jason Tatum to mentally psych him out. That's such a Warriors thing to do. But it's just almost the opposite. I thought Jordan Poole, that was one of our talking points.
Yep.
Yesterday or 2 days ago was that Jordan Poole being an X factor. Jordan Poole, not getting in his own head, or not, getting upset, or not sinking his shoulders walking back to the dugout like he just struck out for the 3rd time in a row. We said that. So, and I feel like all the worst things came true in the sense of Jordan Poole's play and his stat line.
Well, it is a big responsibility for him because when Steph Curry goes to the bench, it is him and Clay who they lean on to score the basketball. And I'm not like it's hard because it's his first time on this big stage. You kind of wonder what's in his head, and he tried to get cute. He tried to do a little bit of breakdancing, and their defense was like, we don't play that way. Like, this is not Denver, right? It was almost like that's what they were saying is like, dude, you are not playing Denver. This stuff doesn't work against us. And so then he's gonna have to figure that out. And I imagine that the tape and when they go through the film, it's like, dude, you gotta trust your first move and go. Because if you go, they're going to overplay the drive, and then you can get mid-range. Like, he had that nice little floater, that beautiful floater. He had that in rhythm three that was there, but everything else he tried to force. He throws a left-handed pass that goes out of bounds. I've never seen him throw a left-handed pass ever in his career so far. He turned the ball over with a carry. It's just like those things where you're like, yeah, you can't blame him for the game, but it's like the possessions. Steve Kerr made a mention. He's like, it's the turnovers really, and those possessions are valuable. And he just kind of like, oh well, sorry guys, and that's just it's just not happening. And there was a moment defensively where I think Jordan Poole didn't know who he was supposed to pick up as they were kind of coming downhill. So he just kind of stands in no man's land. And Draymond is like, dude, you can't expect me to get that far over to get your guy and then defend my guy. And Jordan Poole was just like, it's like there's some stuff there that hopefully that they can figure out with him, because he needs to be confident, and he was not. He was very much a deer in headlights today.
Well, I want to ask you something, and I already know the answer to this, but I just want to float it out there. We've talked about the three guys coming back, which was Otto Porter, Andre Iguodala, GP2. And if you play everything how the Warriors have been playing, that's basically a 9-man rotation with the starters, Looney at the center, Jordan Poole off the bench, and then you have those three guys off the bench. That's a 9-man rotation. They went with 8 today. That makes sense. It kind of seems like maybe what they're going to do in the playoffs. GP2 didn't play. And I'm asking this because, we were kind of ranting about Poole. Is Poole someone who you could see his minutes decreasing or potentially even get moved out of the rotation? Or do you think he's just a complete lock, not moving? This is the guy who they're riding with. This is, because, in my head, I was like, okay, maybe Iguodala can get moved out of the rotation. It's like, no, I don't think Iguodala can get moved out of the rotation. Otto Porter Jr., for sure not. He brings everything they need and more. So who is it? Or do they just keep adding more?
I think you have less of a leash when it comes to the stuff that he does that really changed the trajectory of what's going on the court. And we'll see how they play it. I think the main problem is, like, I don't know if they're, and maybe we'll hear more about this, but I would be concerned with GP not playing that they don't think he can really shoot. And so if he can't shoot, Boston is already so long and so quick around the perimeter. They're basically playing 5-on-4 with everybody else. And so I'd be concerned about that. We'll see what they say. Maybe he needs until Sunday to where he's comfortable shooting, because he's just going to be in the corner shooting threes. That's essentially what he's doing, right? But I think Jordan Poole is going to get a chance. And when he plays like he did tonight, just like what happened in the fourth quarter, they're going to take him out very quickly. I think we're going to see more of that. Now, if he is scoring and he's shooting and he's actually creating on the other end, you may be able to live with some of those defensive collapses, but he's on the court when these guys are just jacking threes, and that has to mean something. I don't think he was the worst in the plus minus category for the Warriors. The worst was, Oh no, it was Jordan Poole. He was a
Yeah,
minus.
I was about to say who could.
Well, he was a minus 19, and Otto was a minus 18. And they're the guys who are on.
Man.
Well, they're the guys who are on that second team. You know, when they need to keep that lead. When Otto's playing with the first team, you know, his stuff is way better. But then he's on the second team, and that's where they get blown out.
Otto was very missed. He does all the right things in the sense of he could shoot a open three and he could play defense, and then he brings on that added bonus of fighting for the offensive rebound, getting a good defensive rebound too. He was missed. What was his stat line? Because he had 12 points, 4 for 5 from 3. Like, that's so needed. That is so big from Otto Porter Jr. So
yeah, you know, I think there are changes to be made if they believe that this is repeatable. Like, Kirk could just say, you know what? They just had a great night shooting, and they're not going to shoot like that again. Well, I mean, I think they shot, was this like 50% from 3-point land? 51.2%, 21 of 41. And the Warriors weren't slouches. They were 19 of 45.
mm-hmm.
Horford 6 of 8. A lot of that is Draymond not being able to close out, or Draymond kind of trailing.
And Derek White
5 of 8. Jaylen Brown was only 2 of 8 from 3. Jason Tatum was only 1 of 5 from 3. So their best two players did not shoot the lights out, but Marcus Smart, Derek White, and Al Horford were a combined 15 of 24 from 3-point land. So does that mean that the Warriors are closing out hard on Tatum and Brown, knowing that those are the guys who they don't want to beat them? And the Celtics are just like, okay, that's not there. Swing it. Okay, that's not there. Swing it. And by the time it gets to that third guy, the Warriors defense is so tired that they don't get there. So, I mean, that's going to be something, because what you could do, and this is kind of unfortunate, this is what they did in the 2015 finals, is they say, you know what? We can't start Bogut. We got to start Iguodala. And what you could do is, you can't start Looney. You got to start Iguodala, because what that means, I think it'd be Iguodala. And the reason is because Andre will not make those defensive mistakes, right? Like, he not only is he long, but he's not going to make the mistakes. Now, the thing is how many minutes can he actually play? That's part of it. He may not be able to play that many minutes.
And the thing is, I don't know if they'll downsize as well and take out Robert Williams from the starting lineup. I think Draymond might help a little too much in the drive. Draymond's an amazing IQ defender, but even he, like with Robert Williams' athleticism, being able to just get that quick lob or something, that who knows? We'll see. But I think my problem is that that's a gamble that Steve Kerr could say, look, they just had an amazing shooting night, which he's right. They did. Derek White and Al Horford, I would almost guarantee, wouldn't replicate that performance, although Derek White had a great game 6 against Miami. I don't remember his game 7 stats, but Al Horford's had a pretty good story throughout this playoffs too. That could be a gamble to say, look, they won't have that same shooting night. But the thing is, I don't know if Tatum will be that bad again. And I don't know if Brown will be that bad from 3-point again. Maybe.
Well, and so Brown, you know, we looked at these numbers. He didn't shoot the lights out in any of the series so far. And Tatum is shooting well. He's not shooting 40% from 3. But those guys are going to make more layups, mid-range.
Especially Tatum. Jaylen Brown had a good game.
Yeah, he was 10-23. I thought he was really solid. I was just, every time I watch him play, I go, man, I wish we had one of those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, you know, let's go over our 3 points, and we'll kind of break it down that way. Steph comes out hunting, and so you mentioned it. They're not trapping. They're not doubling. They're dropping a little bit on the pick and roll, and then expecting the help to come. And they were getting confused on some of that stuff for sure. And he goes off. He gets 21 points in the first quarter and then scored 0 points in the second quarter. That was rough. In the third quarter, I actually don't have the quarter by quarter stuff, but he ends up with 34 after 21 in the first. So he only scores 13 points. 13 points for the rest of the game. 7 of 14 from 3, so shot it excellently from 3. But he was looking for a shot, right? He was looking for it.
He was under 50 from the field?
Yeah, he was 5 of 11.
Not from the free throw. Wait, from the field field goal?
So
Just like the regular series?
3-point shots, he was
Oh, you
7 of
subtracted.
14.
Gotcha.
2-point shots, he was 5 of 11.
Gotcha.
So, he played really well. It is a little bit of a wasted performance, but when they did figure out a way to kind of bottle him up a little bit, nobody stepped up.
Mhm.
Andrew Wiggins had a pretty good game, but he was 2 of 7 from 3, and they were doing the Derek White thing with him. Derek White made 5 of 8, Andrew Wiggins 2 of 7. And that is, not necessarily the difference in the game, but you see the same strategies by both teams. And White made them, Wiggins didn't, though Wiggins, played pretty well in other areas, defensively as well, against Jaylen Brown in a lot of scenarios. But who had it doesn't look like this in the plus minus, because it was only a -1. He was the best of the main Warriors players. I thought Draymond looked old. I thought he looked slow. I thought he looked short. And he is short, but he usually plays so tall. But against this team, he just looked like another guy out there. I know he got 11 rebounds. He was playing hard, but offensively, he was the worst player on the floor on both teams. 2 of 12 shooting, 0 of 4 from 3, 0 of 3 from 3 from the free throw line, and just awful. Like to the point of, we were texting back and forth, and I was like, he is shooting these shots and crossing his fingers. He had no faith that any of this stuff was going in. You could just tell by the body language. Line drives, out of control, no grace around the basket. And that's kind of how he does it. But I don't know. I don't know why it just looked a little worse today than it usually does. And probably because it just didn't fall in either.
Maybe a little too much Lobos over the weekend. Potentially. But I don't know if this is in your points, but I think Plus Minus was saying in their latest podcast that, the finals is like different in the sense of like media presence, where they have a whole media day. Guillermo comes out. I love those Guillermo videos, but it's just a whole like national media presence, all the ESPN there and everything. And then it's like different when you've been there before, but when you haven't been there before, it's like, whoa, like you're in awe, essentially, is what they were saying. And I thought that was going to be the Celtics. And, it kind of seemed like it was a little bit when the game started, and then the Warriors, shout out to Chase Center. I thought they were being really loud tonight. But to that point, Chase Center was being really loud, and the Celtics were having some miscommunication on defense. That's why Steph was, going off a lot in the first quarter. They were dropping a little too much. And I could tell that they couldn't hear each other.
Mm-hmm.
But then they were able to just alter that and turn it around. I think the story of this maybe should be the Celtics were able to adjust at half, where the problems that I saw from the Warriors defense at the first half did not adjust. And I think that could be a major talking point that they need to go into, because who won the coaching battle? I think Ime did.
I would say, that's hard to say, right? Because what are the Warriors up 15 in the third quarter? They're up 15. Steve has to take Steph out. Steph can't play. He can't do the Jimmy Butler and go all 48, right?
Especially in game one, no.
Steve knows that's just not going to be great for Steph. And then, he tweaks his ankle there in the fourth quarter. They have to figure out a way to win those minutes. And I don't know if it's a lineup adjustment. I don't know if it's more zone defense, knowing that, Jordan Poole's just going to get picked on. It was so fun to sort of see that battle, because they were knowing that the Celtics were going to run a pick and roll every single time. They put Jordan Poole on the big man, so they would come up to run the pick and roll, and then he could guard the small man. And it's like, pick your poison, because neither guy was afraid. Like, they were hunting, as Steph was hunting shots, the Celtics were hunting Jordan Poole. It was like, where is that guy? Because we want to go at him. And it wasn't just trying to take him off the dribble. It wasn't just trying to, put him under the basket. It was like, he's not going to close out on the shot either. Like there was one where I think it was Jaylen Brown hits a three, and Jordan Poole does this thing where he gets his hands up, and Jaylen, he doesn't jump, but Jaylen shoots a three over him, and it's almost like Jordan turns to his teammates and goes, "Guys, but I had my hands up at least." It was like one of those. And I was like, oh, man, this guy does not believe that he can guard these guys, which is unfortunate because they're going to need him to play hard. And I would just love to see him foul the guy, foul him instead of letting him get by you. Yeah, you're going to waste a foul. You may put a guy in the free throw line, but rather than play that Olay defense and then do the thing where you're like, oh, my bad. It's like, I've seen enough my bads. We don't need to see that many my bads in this final. So, I mean, that kind of feeds into our second point, which is meet the moment, JP. Meet the moment is very much a Silicon Valley saying / phrase. I'm not a fan of, a lot of these sayings from, from CEOs and such, but in this case, I think it really fits. Like meet the moment means like, we have this big opportunity and we need people to kind of, come together and work hard and, be their best so that we can reach it. And that's what needs to happen with Jordan Poole. He needs to be tougher. He can't just, he is on defense. You see this guy just flailing because they're being tough with him. And, they saw the last two series where that was the way that you beat him and you kind of got in his jock was just to be tough with him. And look, he is going to be a really good player. And I think this series is going to be really good for him as far as understanding, what this is all about. He's going to know it better than we could even say it. He knows what's going on, but I would love to see him stand his ground and just not allow something to happen because I think he's being a little too easy right now. And he needs to step up to the plate and really, really, really dig in. And it just needs to happen because if they're going to lose the Steph Curry bench minutes all the time, then that's hasta la finals for them.
I feel like I've already said all my Jordan Poole stuff in the beginning. Yeah, no, I already said all my JP stuff. I mean, I just floated the idea of him being taken out of the rotation. I feel like it can't go any worse than that.
Okay, so let's say we get the GP minutes, and let's say, maybe GP gets 5 of how many minutes did Jordan Poole play tonight? Jordan Poole played 25 minutes, and he would have played more. He would have at least played 28, but they brought Steph in early with the 5-point lead, and they just collapsed even more after that. It was done. But let's say he plays 20 and GP gets 5 of those, or maybe he plays 15 and GP gets 10 of those. There is something with GP where they'll be able to, turn it up a little bit on defense. But again, he gets stuck in that corner. And if Draymond or Wiggins or somebody else is also on that court and they're not afraid of 2 shooters, that could be tough as well. That could be really tough for the Steph spacing. So it's almost like you kind of have to play JP because at least they have to check him out there, because if not, they're just gonna play 5-on-4 basketball, and that's gonna be rough on the rest.
I feel like the GP minutes have to come in that Poole in the non-Steph lineup with Poole, with Iguodala, with Clay. Who else is out there? Otto. So I guess Iguodala and GP are the 2 non-shooters. But Iguodala, I guess, can kind of play that Draymond role at the top.
I almost wonder if he plays with Steph. I almost wonder if the starting lineup is Steph, GP, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond.
You're kicking Loon out when he just finally got back in?
What? I mean, he rebounded well, right? He rebounded well, but he had 9 boards. He had a total of 4 points. He fumbled a bunch of passes out of bounds.
He was fumbling today. That was a quite clear reminder of when Steph went to Wiseman in the middle of the season, or I don't remember if it was last season. Steph was like pointing in the air to Wiseman. He's like, for you, I could throw this lob. and he was like frustrated because Looney kept either catching the bounce pass or missing it or pump faking into oblivion and putting up a. Yeah, I agree. This wasn't the best Loon game. Good.
But I mean, but I think they're going to have to be pretty strategic and selective. What does Steve see as the worst thing that they need to fix now? If it is the perimeter defense, then maybe it's worth it, right? Maybe it's worth not getting a rebound here and there so that they could close out on shooters. Does that open it up for, Rob Williams? Does that make Horford play a little bit more inside? I think they'd be okay with that if they could at least defend this team a little bit more. And then, on offense without Loon, you can probably do a few more things with back cuts and stuff. So, I mean, it's an interesting idea. It would be kind of hard for GP to just go, "Hi guys, I'm back." Oh, dude, you're starting. Which is why I brought up Iguodala, because he played really well today.
Yeah. Well, what would you say is the thing they need to fix then? Because I felt like the offense was there. Yeah, Wiggins 2 for 7 from 3 seemed like he was missing some open threes. I think it's the defense. I think it's that defending the perimeter, and I think Gary Payton would be the best Jaylen Brown defender that the Warriors have. And then Wiggins on JT, Steph on Smart, I guess Clay on. Ooh, see, this is when it gets tough. So maybe Clay on JT.
You may put one of those guys on the center, right? If they are going to play a center, because if they are going to play the two bigs, Williams and Horford, you may sink Steph or Clay on one of the bigs and just go, okay, like throw it in the middle. Like we're just gonna, you're gonna try and put the ball on the floor and take one of our littles, and then we're gonna trap you when you put the ball on the floor. And we're gonna steal it from you. It could be something like that. Yeah,
I don't know if it's GP starting, but I do think it's GP in the lineup. And I think, like you said, you just said that, like, what does Steve Kerr think he needs to address? And he'll make that change in like the lineup or starting lineup or a rotation. I think it is that defense on the perimeter. And like you said, they can get it in the paint. If they have to force out Horford inside, they'll throw it into Horford. Boom, trap. Maybe Horford's not the best at passing out of those situations. So
I'd rather him hit twos than threes. Like that's, he 6 of 8. Most of those were from the corner. And he's kind of the last guy to get that whip around pass, and the Warriors just could not get to that last shooter. So yeah. So, okay. So last thing here, obviously we talked about the epic collapse, but I think it goes a little bit deeper. Horford outplays Draymond by a very wide margin. Oh, look, I spelled margin wrong. What's going on? By a very wide margin. And Clay and Wiggins weren't really factors in the way that Smart, White, and Brown were. I think it comes down to the fact that the Celtics can guard the perimeter. They almost overdo it. They kind of overguard the perimeter. And sometimes that, you can be open. You can open up the middle because they overguard the perimeter. It's like, okay, now let's go in the middle. Because a lot of times, those mid-range jumpers, those 18-footers, the floaters were there, and they're kind of giving that up. They're basically saying, look, you can shoot that. We're going to live with that. We're going to close out the threes, and we're going to try and make it hard for you to make threes, and you can shoot those runners, shoot those 20-footers, and then we're also going to overplay your drive. We're going to cut off the middle as well. So they're really sort of selling out on the three-pointers, and they're selling out on the drives. So that does leave the middle open. Now, is that an efficient way to score? I think for Steph, for Draymond, in some instances for Clay, if he just trusts his ability to rise, because he doesn't have to fade away on everything. Like he can just go right hard, stop, and get up. He is sick, he's 6'7". He can do that. But it's not necessarily the best way that Wiggins has to sort of set up his long distance too, right? He's got to go into his thing, step back. Like he's not going to just go attack, stop, and shoot, because it's just not his game. If he's going to attack, he's going to attack the rim. So I don't know. I think there are open buckets there for the Warriors. It's just not super efficient for them. And you're kind of playing into the Celtics' hands defensively. And then on the flip side, they're going to have to find a way if they're going to continue to play this lineup, they're going to have to find a way to possibly play more zone. That could be a thing where they go, you know what, we're going to have to play a little bit more zone, and then see how the Celtics play that. Celtics have shot creators, Tatum, Brown. They can all get their shot if need be. They don't have to, they don't have to be wide open to get a shot. They can create. Jaylen Brown is going to stick his shoulder into somebody and rise up. Wiggins had a nice block on him because I think he sort of scouted that shot. But there were other times when Brown was able to get that shot. So, I just don't think we can rely on the fact that they're going to miss open threes next game. This is not Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock. It's just not. These guys are much better shooters. And the fact of the matter is that their offense is run so much better. This is not, sort of Luka and four guys. This is, let's run an offense and let's get guys open shots. And that's a difference. Like the Warriors wish that this was Luka and the four guys because they could guard that stuff way easier than they can guard these guys, these long guys who can all shoot running offense.
Yeah, that's just going to be the thing for next game is adjustments made. And I feel like we've offered some pretty good ideas. We'll see if they get made true, but I want to ask you a question in that out of the remaining people on the bench, let's not include Gary Payton because I think we're both under the assumption that if he's good to go, he will play. But out of the Kumingas, out of the Moody's, out of, I don't even want to say Damian Lee, out of the Bielitsas, out of the remaining bench players, who do you think will be most likely to make an appearance in actual meaningful minutes in this finals or none?
So you're talking the guys who played last series because of the injuries. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah. Just everyone who didn't play today plus GP. No. Yeah, everyone who didn't play today, but don't include GP.
Yeah, I think Kerr may play Moody, especially if there is another possible injury. Like Andre went down and immediately, because Jason Tatum put his knee right in I think they called it the abdomen, but it was really right in his balls. He just got him right in the balls. And I immediately went, oh no, again, like this poor guy. But he came back and he played, and I thought he played pretty well, actually. But injuries can happen. And if somebody does get hurt, or if they just find Poole not playable, Moses Moody can play in the series. He may be a little more indecisive than they probably want him to be right now, but he can play, especially, look, if Peyton Pritchard could play, and I know that they use him in a different way where he's going to, be in the corner. He doesn't really he's not going to really bring the ball up and play a true point guard position. But Moses Moody could play if Peyton Pritchard's on the court. I want to say Kuminga, but I think mostly because Kuminga can size up with those guys, right? He can play big with those guys. I don't think he shoots well enough to be a true factor against this kind of defense because his way to impact the court is to get to the rim. And I think by the time he decides that he's going to drive, they already have sort of stunted him and stopped the ball, and he's got to find a shooter.
Yep, I'm totally with you. I think it's Moody. We've been saying I think Moody does all the right things. And even though it might not show up on the box score, you don't really see any bad things. And I think that's pretty key for a guy who can hit an open three, defend, and he also tries really hard. Just sounds like a littler Otto.
One more guy who I think could, only because Kerr really likes him. And it's not Damian Lee, by the way.
JTA or Bielitsa?
No, I think it's Bielitsa, only because Bielitsa can stretch whoever the big is and stretch him out because Bielitsa plays much better, on the perimeter than he does in the post. So you could do some strategic things with Bielitsa to pull him out, just to try and pull out
Rob
those
Williams
guys and stretch them out, and do the same thing that they were doing to Draymond today, right? Like if you if you have to guard the entire perimeter, like I almost feel bad like dogging on Draymond a little bit, but he would probably say the same thing. Like, Ben even told us when he saw Draymond and Marcus was with him, and Draymond came up to them and was like, "Oh man, I wasn't good tonight." I assume that he's looking at that box score, probably before he's getting ready to do his podcast. I'm going to give Draymond some advice from podcaster to podcaster. Don't do a podcast tonight. Just say, you know what? I left my equipment in Dallas. It just hasn't made it back. I'll be ready on Sunday night. Like I just wouldn't do one. But yeah, it is hard to guard the entire perimeter in the way that the Warriors would have had to do it tonight in that fourth quarter. And that's how Boston won the game. Now, can the Warriors create opportunities like that too? Possibly. Is that more playing into Boston's hand? Maybe. I trust that Steve Kerr and all of the coaches sort of thinking about this from the offensive perspective. I'm sure there's options. I'm sure there's things that they're going to do on Sunday that are not. But here's what I will say. In no way is this series over, but they have to win game 2. Game 2 is must win. If they don't win game 2, there's a possibility that we don't come back. And this was my nightmare, right? The young team going like, wow, we figured it out and nothing is holding us back. They kind of let them do that tonight, and they need to figure out game 2 so that this is actually a series.
Yep. One last update. Anthony Slater tweeted, it's not really anything important, but 4 of Al Horford's 6 made threes were basically uncontested. 2 had a late contest. Horford is making 46.3% of his threes in the playoffs. See, these seem like very easy fixes. Let's not give these guys much breathing room.
Well, yeah, easy to the point. Easy to the point of where if you have the right guys out on the court, you can make that a lot harder. When you're playing Kevon Looney and Draymond at the same time, you are making it very hard on yourself to be able to guard the shot. And that's just basketball, right? That's the Celtics going like, okay, if they're going to play the two bigs, then this is how we'll attack it. And I'm going to guess that probably Looney may have been off the court in some of the bigger ones. And it's just Draymond trying to hold the middle, and he really does have to get out on that shot. That's why I think Andre could be the person who helps them out a little bit more. And if it is GP, it could be GP as well. But those two guys might be key for Sunday in stopping a lot of this and forcing them to shoot more twos. But then if you do that, then Tatum's definitely going to play better, and Jaylen Brown probably play the similar. He'll probably play just as well too. So that's a different sort of, that's a different problem that they could have. So, I think that's it. There's really, it's kind of one of those things where you kind of want to be mad at the Warriors. You're like, God, you guys had this game. Like, what? In some ways, it's almost like Boston just snatched it from them. Boston was like, no, like we're going to take this game, and the Warriors could do nothing about it. It was really weird to watch. That's why I sort of think it's like 2002 Giants, because the Angels just snatched that game right from them, and the Giants were kind of cruising like, we like this, and Warriors were like, feeling pretty good about ourselves here, and they're like, nope.
Yep. And I know, like you just said that it was a game 6, 2002.
Yeah.
Game 6 is more must win than a game 1, but with context with this game 1 where the Warriors got more rest, the Warriors are a 3 seed with home court advantage in the finals.
Yep.
It just seems like a similar must win than a game 6 in the World Series.
That was my thing, right? They got to win the 2 at home. Like, they're so important. I know Slater thought that the Warriors would lose 1. I don't remember which one he thought they were going to. I think he thought they were going to lose game 2. But yeah, the Warriors have just made it really, really hard on themselves to stay with this young team. Now, maybe in game 2, the experience starts to play in and they can actually get back to their style basketball. But the way that the game was played today, it was so much more to the favor of Boston. All these threes flying all over the place, ball whipping around, the long arms on defense. It sort of played right into their hands.
And I don't think you bet on this, but I think you hope for this in the sense that Boston has played 2 game 7s. Maybe they get a little tired in the finals where,
but who looked like
a
the
lot of games
tired
on them.
team tonight, though? That
And
was
it
my
wasn't
thing.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, who looked tired? The Warriors were the ones who looked tired.
Yeah, but Boston could still look more tired when we get to the later games. If there are later games, maybe they're just trying to eke it all out in those first 4 games.
And there's a lot more time between games than I even realized. They don't play again until
next
Sunday.
game is Sunday,
then Wednesday,
Friday, Saturday. Yeah,
and so there's 2 days of rest, and the young spry legs, and I don't know, whatever Al Horford, he's taking his vitamins or whatever because he looked fresh too. So
maybe I'll go try to find Marcus Smart in the city and tell him I don't like his green hair and see how that affects game 2's performance.
Well, some of it was the referees allowed him to basically armbar Steph every time he had the ball. And then they called the foul on Steph for trying to get unarmbarred. I thought that
it was a
interesting.
push off, but it was also Steph literally saying he's armbarring me, he's grabbing my arms.
Yeah.
Like
he got frustrated
annoying.
too. He doesn't usually get that frustrated. I think he sort of sensed like if they continue to call the game this lightly, it could be trouble for us. All right, so you are the Band Podcast at the Band Pods. You have a pretty fun interview tomorrow. Are you gonna announce it, or are you just gonna kind of crush?
Yeah, no, I think this is not the guest, but we tried to get Eric Pascal on one time.
Yeah.
And Eric Pascal agreed, and then he big timed us. And this specific guest, maybe not as big of a name as Eric Pascal, but maybe provides even more insight than Eric Pascal ever will. Rafael Barlow. He is on the NBA Big Board podcast. He is the director of scouting for that podcast. I trust him with everything when it goes into the draft. You might know him from, it was Chad Ford's podcast. Chad Ford, a very notable name, who retired and handed off the baton to Rafael Barlow.
So he now runs the Big Board Substack?
Yep.
Wow.
Well, yeah, the Big Board Substack, and he's very high on Paolo Banchero, so I might have to ask him a question that says, who is your favorite prospect in the draft, and why is it Paolo Banchero? I think that might be my first question.
Well, supposedly this draft, like a lot of people like at least the first 3 guys, are really, really good, supposedly going to be good players. But yeah, I will dig into that stuff after this finals because we'll do a draft version of this show as well. So I'll have to start digging in, but I'm not going to pay attention until after the finals are over. All right, so check out the Band. When is that podcast going to be live?
It'll record tomorrow. We'll see how quickly I can get it up. I'll try to get it up as quick as possible, but I might have to think that I'll get it up as quick as possible. Bet on it tomorrow night.
All right, so just follow us at BSPN Shows on Twitter and Instagram, and you can listen to the Death Lineup on the BSPN podcast feed by searching for BSPN. You may have to throw in the Bay Area Sports Podcasting Network, but you can see our nice little BSPN logo that looks snazzy. It looks like 1980s ESPN. So check us out. You can listen to all of our shows. Brad and I did a show. We did a preview show the other day with Max Lee, and the Red and Gold Standard podcast about the 49ers is in this feed, generally weekly. Sometimes, maybe they'll miss a few days here and there, but they'll come back with 2 episodes. So,
and maybe WNBA soon. Announcement that they're looking for a couple expansion teams. San Francisco was on the list.
Oh, really?
I better get ready to know my WNBA because I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I would love to have a WNBA podcast on this network. All right, we're gonna get out of here. We'll be back Sunday night, hopefully, with better news, with better energy. We were pretty good. See, the thing is like when the Warriors have been in 6 finals, it's like it's not like this is the first time the Warriors are in the finals and we're just like so nervous and stuff. Like it's like basketball. It's like, oh yeah, long series, we get it. But like I said, if they do not come away with game 2, then someone's gonna be making Cancun plans. So all right. So we'll be back. So for Brian, I am Double G. See you when we see you. Peace out.